School District. Please, well, hold on. Let's have a roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Here.
Member Merriam?
Here.
Member Pats?
Here.
President Affel?
Here.
Student rep and I spoke today. She's under the weather. And I believe that Ms. Collins-Rogers is also going to be absent tonight.
Yes, she notified me she wasn't going to make it. All right, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You wanted to rise?
All right, do we have any changes to the agenda, Superintendent?
Good evening. No changes. Thank you. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, give me 1 second here. On the closed session, we have item 9.3, conference with real property negotiation. And I'm just curious, have we noticed that correctly?
What do you think might be incorrect?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What, is there something you believe is incorrect?
So I'm just looking, and I'm looking at the Brown Act, and so conference with real property negotiation. And so it's the property, which we did. We didn't identify an agency negotiator, which is specify names of negotiators attending the closed session. If let's see. Negotiating parties, not agent, specifically name of party, not agent. Under negotiation, specify whether instructions to negotiator will concern price, terms of payment, or both. And so I didn't see that on there. So maybe I'm reading that wrong, but it tells me that it can't just be a blanket, hey, we're going to negotiate. We have to be more specific about who we're negotiating with. So,
And you're glancing at our board policy, is that correct?
no, I'm looking at California codes. So, 54956.7. So,
Do you want to adjourn while
No.
I check, or I don't know?
Maybe we can adjourn at some point.
Mhm.
We certainly got, let's get going through the
Sure.
meeting, and we have
Okay.
time before closed session
Sure.
to amend that.
I can check in the meantime while we're going.
Yes. All right. Why don't you do that? I think to the extent that any of those things would be involved, that's the question. Is what needs to be noticed. All right, so we're going to not change the agenda for now, but we're going to check on Mr. Pat's question pending. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
do we need to approve the agenda? We haven't approved the agenda.
I think we're moving the approval later in the meeting, is what my thinking was, or we could approve it as is for now, subject to Mr. Rubio checking with council. Because that would be a change.
It seems to me that how can we go through an agenda if it's not approved? I mean,
Okay.
just a question. I don't know.
You want me to, what would you like to do?
I'd like to move that we approve the agenda, subject to changing, checking with council on Mr. Pat's question. Do I have a second? I'm not hearing a second. We don't know if our counsel is present right now, and then I'm concerned about you getting, to the substance that you can get at while your child is here. This is like the last item on the agenda at the end of the meeting. So we have time to figure out the answer to it. But if there's an alternative motion, I stand by.
Amend the agenda stating that item 9.3 discussed at a later time. Based on-
Unless it's legal
So are
to
you moving
discuss
that
it tonight.
Are you moving
Yeah,
that we
but
pull that
that's-
item?
Let's move it. Let's move to
Then
poll.
I'll second that.
I'm not convinced that we can't discuss it tonight yet, if we're not discussing.
I'm sorry, point of order, though. We have a motion and a second. Your motion didn't get a second.
No, I'm discussing your
Oh,
motion.
okay.
The pending motion.
Got it. Just wanted to clarify
Sorry.
that was pending.
All right. Would you like to read to me again what your concern is? Just quote the language that you quoted before. I think that'd be
Oh.
helpful.
Sorry, I've moved on. Let me find it here again. So specify names of negotiators attending the closed session if circumstances necessitate the absence of a specified negotiator, an agent, but then it's the negotiating party. Specify name of party, not agent. Under negotiation, specify whether instructions to negotiator will be concern price, terms, payment, or both.
Okay.
So I don't think we can go into closed session with just a blind item that we're going to talk about negotiations without actually having something to talk about. And if we have something to talk about, we need to identify who and what.
And I think the question is whether we can go into negotiations with a preliminary discussion about those items, but with no specifics, price, person,
Right, but I guess my-
agent, et cetera.
I guess my comment would be is we're not negotiating at that point, right? If we don't have a second party, then we're not actually in negotiations, because you can't negotiate with yourself.
Well, we can check with legal. I mean, it's not my understanding that when you have for example, a settlement negotiation, that you necessarily.
But this isn't a settlement negotiation, it's a real estate.
Right.
So it doesn't, I mean, there's a whole section on legal issues and settlements, that's covered separately.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, we have a pending motion.
My thoughts are, there's some discomfort that we should just not discuss it tonight, unless he's on the phone, but he has an answer right now.
We have a pending motion, and, I think that I'm sensing sentiment to put it over till we can get a more thoughtful response than one on the fly. So I'm going to call the question. Can we have a roll call?
This is for the motion to
This is Miriam's motion to
next meeting.
move it to the
to
next
approve the
meeting.
agenda with the exception of 9 point, and again, I've
Yeah.
lost my place.
And when it will happen is, I guess, not part of the motion, doesn't need to be. It's
No.
just, it's not going to happen tonight, is the motion.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. Okay. Ms. Tamery, maybe you can inform yeah. We're going to go ahead without it tonight. And we're going to move on
I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
to public comment. No, we did, okay.
So we've
We're
approved the
gonna-
agenda, we can do public comment now.
Do we have any comment on items not on the agenda within our jurisdiction? All right. Do we have a report from the ETA or CSEA? We don't have our student representative with us tonight, but we do have our Annie Yates principal here tonight, and we would love to have a report. Thank you for coming out, Ms. Lang.
Good evening, Ms. Emery, Superintendent Rubio, and all members of the board. So I had a few updates about things that have been occurring at Anna Yates. I know that you all had heard about a few things that were going on, as this has been an ongoing update. So I thought I'd start with a few things that were relevant to our staff in service of our students. So I was wanting to start with the fact that this year we've had 14 staff who have now fully completed CPI training. CPI training is crisis prevention and reduction strategies. If you have a de-escalation strategies, if you have a student who's needing support. There were 3 consecutive Wednesdays that a staff person had to attend with, it actually was held in Alameda. And we had 14 of our staff who've now completed that and have their little cards to show, including myself, have their cards to show that they've been trained in that. Yesterday, we had 9 staff members go to a School Moves professional development in Berkeley. It was on the topic of learning and the brain movement. Learning and the brain movement to maximize learning. So the correlation between kinesthetic movement and learning in the brain. We are continuing in our partnership with Mills Teacher Scholars. So the Mills partnership is about inquiry, focal students, and being very intentional and reflective in terms of what we do in front of our students and how we determine whether or not students are actually learning what we have taught them. We have a fundraiser coming up with our PTO. Our PTO is continuing to thrive. They met last night. And one of the fundraisers that's coming up in support of the 8th grade class is a day at the races. So that's going to be at a Golden Gate Field, which is in Berkeley. And I have a flyer that I'll pass down in case anyone was interested in coming out to support our PTO. And again, this is for the 8th grade class, their promotion ceremony that will be on June 16th. We're trying to now raise funds for that. The actual day at the races will be April 16th, and the tickets are on sale now.
How much are you trying to raise?
For that particular fundraiser, our PTO president let me know that there are 75 tickets that need to be sold. So
I meant for graduation, sorry.
I don't know the overall amount that's being sought to be raised, but I can say that for that particular fundraiser, there are 75 tickets at $45 a piece that we're striving to sell.
Okay.
But our PTO is always looking to raise funds. I haven't gotten a specific breakdown of like how much are we trying to raise for 8th grade promotion, because our PTO puts on a number of events, so they didn't give me like a special breakdown for just that. We kicked off our Cal State University East Bay partnership. They're on our campus now with a STEM program for our students and for the community. And the kickoff for that event occurred last week in our science lab. And there's going to be partners who are coming out. I met some people who were from Bayer here in Emeryville. And there's also partners from Novartis. And they're going to be offering STEM after school, Monday through Friday, as well as on Saturdays for our students and, again, the community at large. And our ILT, which is our instructional leadership team, is in the process of updating our staff and student handbooks. For next year, we're getting an early start because it is time intensive to update those. So we're working on it now, reviewing, making revisions and edits and things of that nature. We have had several of our classes, including our journalism class and a kindergarten class, take advantage of the opportunity to go to a field trip at our Bay Street Apple store here in Emeryville. They came out and did a professional development with our staff, introduced themselves, and explained what their offerings were for our students. And many of our students have gone on field trips, and I believe we have another group going next week, 2nd graders. On February 27th, the last Friday of February, we had a celebration of African American history at school. Every month we celebrate culture, some culture, but because February was African American History Month, we celebrated African American history. And we had presentations from students and speeches and a variety of nice presentations, including African hand drumming and different activities in celebration. We also had Alameda County firefighters come and visit a 4th grade class, Ms. Johnson's class, and speak to our students about what it takes to become a firefighter and their experiences throughout Alameda County. And that was also in celebration of African American History Month. We had Spirit Week in the month of February, which included Culture Day, Cultural Dress Day. So students were allowed to come to school out of their uniform and dressed in clothing that reflected their culture. They had a pajama day and a college wear Wednesday as well. And our middle schoolers had a Valentine's Day dance, and that dance was hosted by the PTO, and it was actually held here in this room, and it was very well attended, and our students really enjoyed it, and that was on a Friday evening. So those are a few of the things that have been happening at school.
Any questions for Ms. Lang? All right, thank you, Ms. Lang. We appreciate your coming out and updating us. I know the school has been humming along far into the year, but there's still good energy on the grounds, and we appreciate the PTO is working well, and I know the students enjoy the Spirit Week, so we appreciate your leadership there.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a superintendent's report?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to take a moment to report out that staff and I have been working hard on preparing for the Saturday's community workshop meeting, and in Cabinet we work together as a team to go through the list of the types of items we need to ensure that are in place for the meeting. I visited the construction site again this week a few times with Mr. Baker and the architect, and we were able to look at progress as well as get some panorama type views. I think we're going to be able to send out some links so people who, if they can't attend this Saturday, will still be able to actually see the site, see the classrooms, see the facility, and be able to actually zoom around in sort of a Google map kind of format. And so I just want to make sure I highlight that we have a meeting this Saturday at 10 a.m., a community workshop meeting regarding the ECCL facility and our plans for that facility, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Saturday. And that is the extent of my update for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I don't really have a board president's report tonight, and I'm trying to take advantage of Joy's time with us before she has to leave. The only thing I'll add to Ms. Lang's presentation is the day at the races really seems like a neat event, and it's not just going to the races, but for your $45, it's actually going to the club level, the kind of fancy Kentucky Derby style level. There's good food up there, and that's why there's a dress code. Because when I went to the races over there, I was in jeans and just hanging out in the bleachers. But this isn't riffraff like that.
All right,
This is classy. All right. So a good cause too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. On to the consent calendar. Are there any items that people would like to pull?
I need to abstain from 5.3.
Okay. I had one minor thing on 5.3, so we'll pull 5.3. Anything else?
I don't think we have quorum on 5.2.
Okay. So we don't have quorum on 5.2. we will bring that back. We have our 3 who are there. So, we're, is there a motion?
And then, and I have questions on 5.5.
Okay, so we're pulling 5.3 and 5.5. So, do we have a motion to adopt 5.1 and 5.4?
So moved.
Second that.
Roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. Okay, 5.2 won't be voted on, and we'll bring that back. 5.3, you need to separately abstain because you weren't present. All right. All right. And my one edit to that, proposed edit, Ms. Tamery, is, and I got to find it. Oh, it's on the high school exit exam, item 6.5, where it says the governor suspended the administration of the KC.
Are we on?
We're on 5.3, the minutes of the
Yeah,
February 23rd board meeting, item 6.5.
Okay.
Okay, you see in the paragraph it says the governor suspended the administration of the exam.
Yes.
The state suspended. So it's really legislative action with the governor approving. So not something. But with that amendment, I would move to adopt item 5.3. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Abstain.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. Okay, the item passes with 3 yeses and 1 abstention. Item 5.5, Member Pat, you had some questions.
Yeah, so looking at this list of resignations and then the release above, I was just curious, Member Mary and I were talking beforehand, and is this all of our first-year teachers, or is this, I mean, are we retaining any of our first-year teachers?
Yes, these are not all first-year teachers.
They're not all first-year
No,
teachers.
sir, they're not.
I'm sorry, first 2 years probationary teachers.
Yes.
And so we have the one release who's probationary because they're temporary, and then these 5 resignations. And I don't remember if tenure comes to us or not. I don't think it does, so.
I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, I said I don't think tenure comes to us. Some districts, they vote on it. I guess my question, I guess that answers my question. I was just curious as to, it doesn't bode well that our retention of this, of having this many first and second year teachers leaving the district is, you know, there's a looming teacher shortage. It's going to get really, really tight over the next few years, and so we want to make sure we have the right people in place and we keep them. So I just wanted to take a moment and not let, you know, 5 teachers go and leave the district without acknowledging that this is going to hurt. You know, it's going to be painful. I think it'll reflect in our test scores this year, and it'll hurt us next year as we're trying to staff. So I just didn't want to let this go by without saying that. So thank you.
Ms. Harrell, I guess the comment about the prior item that Mr. Pats made.
Can you repeat the, I mean, I think I understood his
Sure.
comments, but
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll just say, I'm not sure that person is not coming back. It's more of a technical need to end a temporary appointment. Or something. Maybe Superintendent, do you want to?
It is required that we end the temporary appointment. Now, this person has different credentials, so if they have the right credential for position that we have next year, I think that's a strong possibility that person
yes,
would
without
continue to
going
be
into-
back with us.
without going to too much of the personnel
Yeah.
matter, This is a temporary release because the person was hired into a temporary, hired temporarily. Should another position come open that individual is credentialed and qualified for, under the temporary release, they are welcome to apply for any other open positions that we have.
Right, to apply.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
your point is that has more to do with the position, was a
Right.
temporary one.
yeah. It has nothing to do with the person.
Yeah. Not that, yeah. Just the
It's
position
just
we
for
have.
temporary releases, it's just a requirement that we release them at the end of that temporary assignment.
But on the, yeah, do you have off the top of your head how many first and second year teachers are continuing on with us?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
Mhm.
We have a total of about 45 teachers,
Mhm.
but for first and second year, I don't have that number broken down.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I-
Any other questions?
Continuing on that vein, I think it would be good to know that information, and I'd also like to know the average length of experience with, tenure of our teachers. I think that it's kind of interesting if we're going to talk retention, that we actually talk about it. You know, I can tell you for my staff, the magic number is 8, right? My staff averages about 8 years with us. And so I'm just curious, district-wide, if we have 45 teachers, it'd be interesting to know how long those have been with us. So I'd love to know first and second year teachers, but also
Average years of experience with the district.
with the district,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Member Mary?
Yes, a quick question having to do with, have we put in place any, and maybe this is a question more towards the superintendent, do we have additional implementation of, I would say, implementation of additional means of retaining teachers, and because of what happened last year prior to the start of the school year, have we doubled our efforts? What have we done to address the shortfall previously as far as not scrambling to fill those positions?
We're doing a few things. I mean, it is true, and I think most of you know that our school district has had a recurring issue over the years of turnover, so this is not a new problem to our school district at all. I'll give you an example. What we're doing now, Ms. Harrell, every 4 weeks and I think it just happened this week, she is reposting the positions so they end up at the top of the list on EdJoin. We have posted early this year. I just started to do some screening with Ms. Harrell of the teacher applicants we have, and so we are planning now to begin some type of screening process. I had a conversation today regarding potential hiring committee. So what we're doing is we're trying to put into motion these things a lot earlier, so we're not in that position.
Thank you.
That raised a question for me. I think you identified it to sort of say, to minimize it, saying it's not a new problem, but I think that actually makes it worse for me, is that it's a continual problem that we are churning through staff. So can I ask for a clarification on that? Are you saying that we should just expect it as status quo, that we're going to churn through staff, or?
No, I'm just making a point of fact, Member Pats. I don't want your comments to be interpreted, and I certainly wanted to share some information in case you didn't know that this is not a new problem for Emery Unified. And no, I'm definitely not saying it's what we should expect. We are always looking for the best teachers we can find. I know the principal's always trying to find the best teachers they can find when they're interviewing applicants. And so to answer Member Miriam's questions, I just wanted to add as much information as I could so that the board had that information. But we are doing everything we can to find the best teachers. And you are correct. It is, and I think Member Affeld said this in the last board meeting, or added to or expanded on that point, that it is getting harder and harder and worse out there for us to find teachers. We have had our high school science teacher position posted since December. We had 4 applicants, none of whom are qualified by the credential. They applied anyway, so it is not looking good for us in general. So
Yeah.
You're right about that for sure.
And it goes back to my comment that I think we really need to be focused on recruitment and retention. I think that's just, we talked about Saturday's meeting, and it's going to be a dog and pony show if we don't have people inside those buildings. And so I go back to the whole reason I pulled this item is the seriousness of it, our kids' education is going to be based on the quality of their educator, the expression that I love is quality first instruction, and if we're not getting that to our kids, we're going to continue being ranked where we are in the county, and that's not a good place to be. So I just want to be sure we take this seriously.
Absolutely. I think I agree with everything you said. So, yeah.
It's news, well, I guess I would say it is news if you're saying we have an ongoing turnover problem. That's stated more strongly than anything I've ever heard. I think, on average, we've been doing a reasonably good job of retaining our teachers, and there are many teachers in the district that have been here 9, 10, 15, 20 years even. So it is the case that urban districts generally experience turnover, and that we as a small district feel the turnover quite acutely. But along with the data that we've sort of asked for Ms. Harrell about average years of experience, I think it would be good to know, do we or don't, how do we compare on turnover relative to our neighbors and other urban districts in the state? And I think that it is also the case, as you both pointed out, that we're on the cusp of another major teacher shortage, given the economic situations, and there are a number of teacher supply reports that are coming out with dire warnings. So we need to make sure we're getting out early. It sounds like you are earlier this year than last year, and being aggressive. And I think we're all in agreement that we want high quality teachers and we want to keep them.
But it concerns me that we say things like, well, there's trouble in urban districts, and we're a small district, so it's going to be difficult for us. I feel like if we set a standard and meet that standard and set expectations that we are not like other urban districts, and don't minimize it when we have these problems, but address them head on, I think that's, because I've heard this for years too. I don't think this is a new to Emeryville issue, but I think if we keep saying that that's what it is, instead of saying that it's an unacceptable to Emeryville, we're going to keep doing it. And that's what I want to emphasize is we need to say, I don't care what Berkeley's retention rates are. Their test scores are significantly better than ours. Their schools are rated significantly higher than ours. Their students are achieving at a higher level than ours. So it doesn't matter to me that they're not retaining teachers. What matters to me is that when we look at our overall picture, we cannot accept the fact that we can't recruit and retain quality teachers because we are losing generations of kids. We've been focused on buildings and not on quality first instruction. And I get frustrated if we minimize that. I think we're going to be looking at this in the spring, and we have to address it head on. We have 600 kids who are dependent on us to get that start in their lives. And it's important. And if we have teachers that are either not up to snuff and we're having to let them go, that's a lost year for that child in that classroom. And I don't care if it's an urban district issue. I care. This is my town. I care about the education my kids are getting. I take it personally. And I'm sorry. I don't accept it as a reoccurring problem. I don't accept it as an urban district problem. It's got to stop. We have to do better.
Yeah. Any public comment on this item now that we're done with our grandstanding? Seeing none.
Thank you for not minimizing that.
Please don't mischaracterize things that other people have said. You can make your point. Do we have a motion to adopt item 5.5?
I'll make the motion. 5.5.
Seconded. Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, was Member Ash, you seconded?
I seconded.
Oh, okay. Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. We did at 5.4. Okay. All right, we're now on to our discussion items. Superintendent,
Yeah.
item 6.1.
Yes, thank you. This evening, we have Dora Sue here with us to present the request for your approval of the second interim report on our 15-16 budget. Ms. Dora Sue, thank you very much.
Good evening. Tonight, we're going to look at the
Can we hear?
15-16 second interim for Emery.
Still can't hear you very well, Dora Sue. Superintendent, are we
Hello?
proceeding?
Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can everybody hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Tonight, we're going to look at the second interim for Emery Unified School District 15-16 school year.
Do you want
And
to
then-
expand that to full screen? Superintendent, can you help her?
Yeah, Doris, in your bottom right-hand corner, there's a little symbol for the presentation mode right next to the 75%, right to the left of the 75%. To the right, to the right.
One more.
Oh,
Up, you passed it.
one to the left. Just to the left.
Left, a little bit more.
A little more, right there.
Next icon,
That's it.
you got it. All right.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to evaluate the district financial condition and have the board to adopt a certification. And here are the three classes of certification: positive, qualified, and negative. The budget goals. We're trying to maintain a fiscally sound budget for the school district, which is the expenditure not to exceed the income. And on this slide, you're going to see the total income for the second interim for fiscal year 15-16. And it breaks down into the unrestricted and the restricted income. And you can see the total revenue for 15-16 second interim is going to be 11 million. And on this line, it shows the expenditures. Again, it breaks it down into the unrestricted and restricted expenses. And I want to point to your attention on the bottom of the slide where it said transfer out is the contribution from the general fund to the food services. So in this case, it's 197,000. And then the contributions on the bottom of the slide, the 772,000 is the contributions to the special ed program and also the ongoing maintenance. And on this slide, it gives us the beginning balance as of July 1st, 2015, and our projected ending balance at the end of the school year. It's going to come to a total of $3.1 million. And as you can see, the 4% required reserve, it is $413,000. And this slide compares the differences between the first interim with the second interim on the income side. As you can see, these income, they are all increased from first interim to second interim.
I'm sorry, are they increased because of enrollment increase or because state increased allocations?
Basically, they are increased because of our ADA. Remember last year in this first interim, the ADA that we base on is the 1415 P2 number. And this one in the second interim, which we will go over a little bit more detail when we are on the assumptions spreadsheet, you will see the assumption that we base on the second interim is the 1516 P1 ADA.
Okay.
And put that in the concrete numbers, what are the difference between the 14-15 enrollment or ADA and the 15-16 for?
I believe in the first interim, the 14-15 P2 ADA is 640. But we will look at the exact number when we are on the assumptions spreadsheet. But then on the 15-16 P1 ADA is 672.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
And then the LCFF, this is why the LCFF funding is increased by 266,000. That's the breakdown. The state aid is 68,000 and the EPA is 197,000. The federal income, most of the
And
increase.
Hold on a second. So it goes up 266 between October
between
and
the
now, and that's all because of the change in the ADA
It's all because
Or
of the
proj-
change in ADA.
projected to
Yes.
actual. Okay.
All right.
All right. Is some of that the
This-
state saying, oh, we're recalculating, actually we owe Prop 98 a little bit more than we thought we did, so you actually get a few dollars more per ADA, or it's all just ADA?
That's the reason why it's so critical that the district has to pay attention to the enrollment and the ADA, because now you can see with the increase of ADA, just 30 ADA that we are proposing here from 640 to 672, you can see the increase of the funding, especially on the LCFF side.
Great. Thank you.
But again, I want to emphasize this is the change from October 31st to January 31st. And this slide shows you the federal income. Most of the money coming out is from the MAR. The MAR money is actually the outstanding old money that we received for fiscal year 11-12, 12-13, and 13-14. So it comes to $202,000. And the state income, the one-time discretionary, $398, and the lottery money, which is including the restricted and unrestricted side, come to $17,000.
So the big thing here was the MA money. Hey,
On the federal income,
Yeah,
it's the
right,
MAR.
right. Can
Yes.
you go, tell folks who may be tuning in what is the MA and why is that's just sort of a one-time blip that we're going to get a big bump like that in the middle of the year? Or?
These
Because I see in the out years, we go back down in federal funding to 250,000 or so a year, not 400,000 a year.
That's right. The MAR program is under the manager, Julia Dunn, and I believe she and her staff will do the reporting to the state each year for reimbursement of the expenses and what they did to the Medicare kids. And apparently the state has been holding the payment for several years. So these are actually the payment for 3 different fiscal years that
Okay.
we are talking about in
All
here.
right, so this is a bit of a back pay settle up from the state.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. All right, thanks.
And then the local income, again, another increase of 69,000 compared to the first
I think
interim.
I had you skipped talking about the state restricted thing.
This one we kind of go over mostly is because of the lottery money, the 17,000. Because the lottery money is based on the ADA. And because we are projecting to have an increase in ADA compared to the first interim, so that's why you see a $17,000
Okay.
increase in lottery.
I didn't know.
And then the local income, there is an increase of $69,000. And part of it is you're seeing we are getting more money from the donations and stuff like that. And then the expenditures, after the update, the expenditures are increased by 183,000. And here's is the breakdown of the increase. As you can see, it's compared to the October 31st first interim figure. And I want to point to your attention to the increase in the books and supplies. That increase mostly to do with the requirement of there is a need for the district to increase the textbooks budget out of the parcel tax. So that's why you see an increase of $102,000 in there. And then another big increase is under the services, the 150,000. And this one is mostly to do with the MPS, which is the non-public school, and the MPA, the non-public agency contracts that we have to increase the budget for the special ed program. And then the other increase on the services is from the MAR. We contract out to Leader Services for this MAR reporting, and they are supposed to get 10% of the payment that we receive from the state. So in this case, since now we are getting all these back payment from the state, we have to pay 10% of the payment that we receive to Leader Services. So that's why you see a big jump in the contracts.
But we got 200,000 in Ma, so that's 20,000.
That's right. And
Right.
then you add on what being required under the special ed, that will make up a majority of the 150,000.
I see. Special ed plus Ma.
That's right.
Okay. And the books and supplies, what did
Books
that go
and
up
supplies,
102,000?
this is all the budget increase for the textbooks.
That we bought books that we didn't know we were going to buy in June? Or because we had more kids, we needed more books, or?
No, we had a glitch in our budget planning in the beginning of the year. This came up with the Parcel Tax Committee that we were missing some items in the parcel tax budget, and one of those were for some pilot English Language Arts Common Core material. So, in budgeting for that, I think that's the.
That's
Am I
right.
correct? So that's showing up here tonight again.
I see. So we're going to spend.
Yeah, either this spring or going into next year, depending on how much progress the committee makes with Ms.
Okay,
McDonald.
So we decided to buy some new books.
Yes, and there are teachers working together
Materials.
with Ms. McDonald to make sure they're Common Core aligned.
Okay, all right. And why are we spending 112,000 less on benefits? Is that because we have fewer personnel than we projected, or benefits are only going up? So
Some of the decreases on the employee benefits are mainly to do with the health and welfare, because now you're seeing several of the mid-year terminations from the teachers. So in this case, they are no longer going to be on payroll, and obviously we are getting the subs to do what they're doing. So, but then for the subs, we do not offer health and welfare.
got it. So we're saving by having subs. So obviously, we would much rather pay to have fully qualified and
That's
prepared
right.
teachers with full benefits.
That number seems very high to me to be covered just by mid-year. I mean, we cap our benefits at what, 13, 14,000?
John, do you know the number, the cap?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I apologize. What was the question?
So I'm sorry, if I heard correctly, the $112,000 difference between our first and second interim in budgets is cost savings based on employees leaving mid-year, and therefore their employee benefit cost going away. So just looking at this, even if we say at $20,000 per year in employee benefits, we cut that in half because it's a mid-year separation. That tells me we've had 11 employees that we're now filling with sub positions. That seems extremely high.
No, well, if it was $20,000, remember, Pat, I think your math would be 5, but I'm not.
No, because they're
No.
mid-year, so they'd be half.
Oh, you mean 20,000 for the year?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know offhand, Dorsu, I guess it depends on the number of years of experience. I don't know. I don't want to start guessing in the dark about
But
what the numbers would be
Do-
depending on the
Do we
employee.
have 11 subs?
But no, we do not currently have 11 subs. The board is aware that I believe that we had some staff members in the fall, one being a teacher that abandoned their position, and another one or two that were the school districts and the school principal's choice to ask them to no longer continue with us. So based on those and based on I think, primarily those. I believe that's what's causing that. But no, it's not.
So I counted
But-
3 there.
This is part of the reason for this increase, but that's not all the reason. The other reason is because of the reduction on the district liability on the post-employment benefits. When we adopted the budget for 15-16, it was projected to be about 4%. But now, because of we are not seeing any increase so far, at least on the retirees. We're still having 6 retirees that we have to provide them with the post-employment benefits, but we are not seeing a jump. So the 4% is now reduced to 2%. So basically the 112,000, part of it has got to do with the health and welfare premiums with some of the mid-year terminations. And second is to do with the realignment of the post-employment benefits that we are contributing by the district to the retirees on payroll.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But I could give you the exact number for each. I believe for the teachers it's about close to 80,000, and then for the others is the post-employment benefits from 4% to 2%.
Okay. That helps clarify things.
All right.
All right, proceed.
Okay, now these are the programs requiring the general fund support. Special ed, 572,000, and the ongoing maintenance is 200,000. It comes to a total of $772,000. And on this slide, it shows you the multi-year projection. As you can see, all 3 years we are making the 4% required reserves. And do you guys have any questions before I go to the next slide on this one? No? Okay. All right, so as you can see, we are still in deficit spending in 16-17 and 17-18. And this slide, it shows you the operating surplus that Emery is having in fiscal year 15-16, and is instead of the 741,000 that you see on the top of the slide, the actual operating surplus for Emery for 15-16 is projected to be 791,000. So fund balance. On the multi-year projection, it shows that Emery is able to maintain the 4% required reserve. So the staff is recommending the board to adopt a positive certification for the second interim. So any further questions?
You
And
talked
you're
about,
I'm sorry, you're going to turn separately to assumptions?
Okay, all right.
No, that's a question.
We will look at the assumptions.
Okay, because we might have questions about that.
Okay.
Member
that
Pats?
was my question.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Do we have the assumption posted? No.
I guess maybe before you go to assumptions, on this, if you can go back to the slide with the 3-year multi-projection going out, showing our size of our deficits. Yeah, there. So we're ending the year 791,000 to the plus, and we're spending that in 17-18 with a $800,000 deficit. So, and then we've got 447 in 16-17. So that basically is a continued, I think, support for your point that we need to increase ADA and get more revenue, so we don't have those big deficits going forward. And a question which it would be curious to know if you could get back to me with is, if you go out 2 years back to, I guess it would be 13-14, and we saw the same slide, 13-14, 14-15, 15-16, so that the current year were the third year in the slide. What were we projecting 15-16 to look like in that year? Because I don't recall, we weren't projecting a 791,000 deficit at that point. Or I'm sorry, surplus, 709, which is what we're experiencing this year. So I think we had a pretty hefty deficit when 15-16 was year 3, if I'm not mistaken. But I guess I'd like you to confirm that.
Well, part of the big surplus that we are having this year is because of the additional one-time money that we receive and also the additional categorical funding that we've been receiving this year. For example, it's the career pathway, the educator effectiveness. These are all one-time categorical funding that we receive in 15-16. But I can no longer able to budget them in 16-17 and 17-18. And the career pathway is 62,000, and the educator effectiveness is 77,000. So they all add up to quite a big chunk of money that we are getting this year. But we are no longer going to see them until maybe the state revised budget adoption. I don't know. But at this time, on the multi-year projection, the assumption says these money are one time that we're going to see in 15-16, but they are no longer able to be funding the district in 16-17 and 17-18. And then the other assumptions that we are making in 16-17 and 17-18 is we are going to have new programs in place in 16-17 and 17-18 using the additional supplemental and concentration money.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I think overall we have some of these one-time monies this year because we had a good economic situation, and the state doesn't want to put it all into ongoing expenditures, because then that commits them under Prop 98 to keep spending at that level forever. So the governor pulls out and the legislature approves these one-time expenditures when times are good. And the economy is, it's still, we're going up, but at a much lower slope. And that slope sort of ends in 17-18 or the year after, and Prop 30 is going to end if it doesn't get amended to go further, which could really hurt us as well. So all this to say, the best number is this year's, and after that we're projecting, and the further out we go, we're projecting even more remotely. Conditions change, economy goes up, economy goes down, external factors like Prop 30 come or don't come. So we need to remain vigilant, but we can't, I guess, all we can do is plan on our best guesses at this point for the future.
And also another factor that we should consider is starting 16-17, all the custodian salary and fringe benefits are back into the general fund.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a big $300,000 a year.
Close to 400,000.
Yeah.
So that's why the board and the district has to be really watching the enrollment and the ADA.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will see a big improvement on the ADA.
Right. All right. Why don't you go to your assumptions at this point?
I don't think we posted the assumptions here, so then let's look at the.
We posted it online.
Online,
you're saying you don't have a slide of the
I don't.
assumptions. Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so there should be 2 pages on the assumptions. On the first page, again, in close to the bottom of that page, you will see an ADA. So we are using the 15-16 P1 number on the second interim. And you can see the ADA is 672.46. And then I want to make a correction because after this slide, this sheet is prepared. I just find out from Keenan that the workers' comp rate is going to be 2.33% instead of the 2.18%.
All the way across?
On the
For all
the
3
last
years?
line, yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Right now it's 2.33% instead of the 2.18%.
Okay.
Starting 16, 17,
And-
17,
and
18.
Is that going to change your numbers slightly?
A little bit.
Okay.
In 15, 16, it's still going to be 2.18. But
Okay.
in the next year, it's going to increase to 2.33.
All right.
And on the second page where it shows the funding, as you can see on the one-time discretionary, you see in 15, 16, you're seeing 339,000, but it drops to 139,000 in 16, 17. And then nothing in 17, 18. And then same to the educator effectiveness is 77,000 this year, but it's not going to be projected in 16, 17, and 17, 18. So any questions on the assumptions?
Member Pats, did you have a question?
Just about the ADA. With 672 as our ADA and an enrollment of 700, that puts our attendance rate at 96%?
Actually, from last year, we have about 92%. This year, yes, we have an improvement in the ADA. It jumps to 96%.
96%, okay.
Yeah.
Do we think that number is going to hold?
Normally, the
Which number, the enrollment?
96%.
Or the 96%, okay.
Normally, there will be a little bit decline. The P2 numbers is always a little bit lower than the P1,
Yeah,
but it's not going to be a lot.
okay.
We will know by end of April.
Okay.
But that's a significant improvement, 92 to 96%. And we're doing something right if more kids are coming to school more days and they're coming on more on time. So can you speak to that, Superintendent?
I know both school sites have been stressing since the beginning of the year that students need to be in school every day. We have tried to make, and we have made some improvements on our automated system that sends letters. We paid for an additional feature this year with the company we use that generates the automatic letters that are mailed to parents and that trigger after a certain number of absences or tardies, and something that company calls the tipping point, so that when it hits a certain number, there's another type of serious letter that goes out to families that again reminds them of the ed code and their obligations as parents, and as polite and as stern as possible. At the same time, by making sure the kids are getting to school. So I can't unfortunately pinpoint if it's that or the efforts in general by the administrators, but I do know there's been a lot of effort on our part to make sure kids are coming to school.
And also, we hire a retired person actually to do some outreach to the parents that having tardy behavior. So I know she's been calling every single parent and talking with them on the problem.
So, again, just looking at the numbers, because I found them, I love the improvement, and I hope it holds, but I'm just looking at the high school. I have the high school enrollment at 173, and their ADA at 171, which gives us a remarkable 99% attendance rate. And I would think that that would seem high to anyone, and so I worry about that number.
I'll go ahead and check that with Dorsu and the school.
Thanks.
The 171 is actually the P1 report that we sent to the state, and this is the report that I got from the site.
Yeah, and I have the enrollment as of 2 weeks ago, about 173 at the high school level, and I was impressed because it represented an increase, which means if we're holding at that attendance rate, then it's even higher than 99%, and that just seems remarkably high for a high school.
And the 173 is the enrollment as of, you know the date?
Pretty recently.
About 2 weeks ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, so, I mean, and again, it was, if I remember correctly, it showed a nice increase. I mean, our enrollment is up this year. It was a real pleasant surprise, almost across the board. There was one grade.
Thank you for catching this. We're going to go back and double check.
Yeah, I'm just worried because if our ADA,
Yeah.
you know, we're not playing with a big margin here, and ADA is huge.
Okay, I will make a note when I do the P2
no.
attendance.
And Doris, so we'll want to double check the last reports that we got from Eric Shell, the consultant who helps us, because I know that they were revised a few times. So I'll look at those with you.
Okay. Because P1 is a report that we submitted back in early November. And this, the 173 number that board member Christian Pat mentioned is like 2 weeks ago. So that's why I said normally in the past the P2 number is lower than the P1. But I will make a note and double check when I do my P2 attendance.
Did you have a question?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead,
have a question.
Member Merriam.
Looking at what I can read on this handout, I take it's property taxes of 3.786 million, and that stays constant through your assumptions. Is there a reason why it stays static? It's the largest that stays static, and a lot of the others have variables mixed into it. Is there a reason why?
Normally in the past, I was told that Emery, when they projecting the property taxes, they will use the last actual money that they receive from the property taxes to do their projection in the multi-year. So let's say if the end of 15-16, the actual dollars that we receive is still going to stay at $3.8 million, and that will be the numbers that we will use to project the next 2 years. So normally I was told that you do not see a big difference on the property taxes. So, but this number will normally be revised. And also another thing, this number is normally go by the J-29 report that we receive from the county office. And they will do it, I believe it's twice a year. So this is what we base on when we do the multi-year projection.
So the 700 is our current enrollment or it was enrollment as a P1?
It's the enrollment as a P1.
And we're probably not above that.
693 is what I have.
Okay. Yeah. So it probably
Double check that.
tweaked down a little bit, but that's not too bad.
I'm sorry, 696.
Okay. It's not bad at all. And you're projecting these deficits that you're showing us up here are based on no increase in enrollment, no decrease in enrollment, basically. So if in fact we did do what we'd like to do and increase enrollment, then those deficits will go down.
That's right.
Yeah. The unduplicated pupil count is another major dimension, and making sure that we have the right percentage of, because I think in the last couple of years, we had undercounted our actual low-income English learner foster youth population. So that has gone up, because that was even 72% or 70% even a year or two ago. Is that
65?
maybe even in the 60s?
Yeah,
Yeah.
64.
So I know it's a rolling 3-year average.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe this is more a question for the superintendent. I mean, if you have these numbers in mind, or whichever one of you, what's our current number? Because it's probably higher than 77, given that we were at 68 or something a few years ago. And if we maintain our current, shouldn't we be projecting a higher number? Because our 3-year rolling average will go up in the next 2 years.
That's true. As the years roll out, our average should go up. So my recollection, and unfortunately I'm running off of memory, is that we were at 64%, and I believe now I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of free and reduced lunch being at around 77% after we tried to be more diligent this year with that process. So I believe we jumped up to around 77%. Doris, do you recall if that's the right percentage for free and reduced lunch?
The 77% is the single year
Correct.
on the unduplicated count. And this has been confirmed with Julie Dunn and Eric.
So that's our current
That's this year.
15,
That's right.
16. Okay, that's not a 3-year average.
Yes, this is only a single year percentage. And under the FICMAC LCFF calculator, it did under the 3-year rolling average, which is about, I believe it's 72%. The calculator itself, it will calculate on the 3-year rolling average. But on this assumption that I want to sow is only a single year percentage that I want to sow the board. But on the calculator itself, the funding is based on the 3-year rolling average. I believe it's not 72%. Because last year, yes, I believe we were only at 65% on the unduplicated count.
Okay, so, well, that's, I guess, good job getting a more accurate count, because it really, a 12% difference is a huge. I mean, it's probably couple $100,000, maybe even once you get into the supplemental concentration.
That's right. From 15-16 to 16-17, there is about an increase of 240,000 on the S&C funding, supplemental and concentration. And then from 16-17 to 17-18, there is about 130,000 increase on the supplemental and concentration. But part of the LCFF sources is already including the supplemental and concentration. As you can see on the first page of the assumptions, you will see LCFF sources, but at the same time, I emphasize the supplemental and concentration is included in that number.
Got it. But I'm just wondering if your numbers need to be tweaked downward then, I don't know if FICMAT's requirement is, that's their sort of, I don't know if it's required to do it that way. We want to do it the way the state's going to send us money, so we don't want to be calculating more money is coming if they're looking at 72%, not 77%, right? So do we need to tweak, because you used 77%. Is that too high for the, it seemed, it may be right for this year, but.
The 77% is single year, but on the 3-year rolling average is, I believe, it's 72%, and that is the percentage the calculator is using, not the 77, but it's the 3-year rolling, which is the 72.
I guess the question is, what does the county want to see? Because they're
the
ones that are sort of responsible for overseeing our budget and our P2 qualification.
The county already make it clear to all the district under Alameda County is to use the FICMAC calculator as the calculations for the LCFF funding.
So then my question would be, should we amend your numbers so that the assumptions are 72% unduplicated count, not 77%?
What I actually should do then in that case, I will revise this assumption sheet and add another line saying the 72% 3-year rolling. And actually that is the percentage we are using to base on the LCFF sources.
Well, but even then, to make it a little more nuanced, next year it's not going to be 72%. since it's a 3-year rolling, it's
Oh.
going to be 74%. And
Okay.
then maybe year 3 it'll be 77% or
Okay.
76.5. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, now I'm seeing what you're saying, yes.
Okay.
All right.
So I guess, anyway, I think that's going to be the most accurate.
I see. So not having, I catch what you're, I'm sorry, it took me a little bit. Not having a static 77.14, because that's
Right.
not going to be as mathematically accurate.
Right.
Okay, got it. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah. But, and is that, it seems like that's going to affect somewhat your numbers, but so can we adopt, anyway,
Yeah.
I'll save that for later. Okay, are other questions? Any public comment on the second interim adoption? Okay. Let's see, do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
And I guess my comment is that, so I think I would propose to amend the motion to adopt what we've been presented with whatever modifications flow from modifying the unduplicated pupil count assumption. Is that understood?
No.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Yes, it's to adopt the proposed second interim report as amended by revising the unduplicated pupil count assumptions.
Point of order, I think. Don't we then have to vote down the motion that was made and seconded and have a new motion with the amendment, or can we amend the motion as currently?
I've offered a friendly amendment, so if Mr. Merriam accepts it,
Yes, I accept it.
then I think we can.
Okay. Want to make sure.
Do you second the revised?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, I do a second. The revised motion.
Okay.
Member
Roll
Ash?
call.
Yes.
Member Marion?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President NFL?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Dorsu. That's really good work, and yeah, we had a very good year, which is good news, and we've got our challenges in front of us, and you keep reminding us of them. So thank you. Superintendent, you want to introduce the next item? And you separated these, or so?
Yeah, separate actions.
Yeah.
Item 6.2 is asking for approval as an amendment to our board policy 1312.3 on our uniform complaint procedures. This is our second reading. And we have gone ahead and removed all the notes based on our conversation and your direction from the last meeting.
But otherwise, they're the same. The content is the CSBA recommended or proposed reg.
It is the content is the CSBA recommended, except that we did retain one particular sentence from the changes the board made in our policies a couple years ago regarding sexual and gender-based harassment and referencing another AR that we have, which is 5145.7. It is in that AR that we have spelled out issues and harassment around and the procedures around gender identity. And it is also addressed in the CBSBA template, but we decided to go ahead and retain the connection that was existed in current board policy to keep that intact.
Okay, so is that, can you point to me what, in what's before us specifically? What,
Sure. Yes.
Where you're looking?
And they have this copy as well. The actual AR 5145.7, I believe Ms. Emery has given that and put that in front of you. If you wanted to take a look at
Yeah.
that.
This is the other,
That's the other AR that's being referenced.
right.
And in terms of the location within this board policy I'm referring to, it is at the very end of number 2 or just above number 3 on page 2. And it's the very last sentence that reads, except that complaints of sexual and gender-based harassment will be investigated and resolved under the procedures in AR 5145.7, sexual and gender-based harassment. I know the board went to a lot of work, I believe, a few years ago on this, and so it seemed prudent to keep that connection.
Yeah, maybe I've got the wrong document open. I think I'm in
Page 2, at the top of page 2, under the online.
Yeah. Okay. This is the board policy.
Yes,
Page 2, okay. I see, okay.
that last sentence there. So that was I went through and compared the CSBA revisions to the existing policy, and a lot of it is additive. Most of it is additive. It's just that was the only thing I could spot, or did spot, that would have been a change and maybe a misconnection if we didn't catch it.
Okay. Gender-based. Okay, yeah, I think that addresses my concern that we not lose or override
Yeah.
the work that we had done before with Office of Civil Rights.
Yes.
All right, are there any other questions on this item? Do you have any public comment? Seeing none, discussion or a motion?
No discussion, I move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affeldt?
Yes. Okay, on item 6.3.
Great, thank you. This is the accompanying administrative regulation for our uniform complaint procedures. There was nothing here that would have been overridden as we reviewed these. This is the revision and recommended template from CSBA with the notes removed.
My one comment on this, since these are regulations, it sort of get set into stone, or we have to revise them. Is to I guess designate the superintendent not by name but just position.
Yeah, better. I hope that's not a hint, but
Not
but I appreciate
necessarily.
it.
But similarly with the address,
Yeah.
that is our current
Yeah.
address, but we don't really need to amend the regs next year to change the address.
That's
So
right.
maybe it could even say, and after,
Yeah.
beginning with the next school year, give the new address.
Yeah, I do know I'm looking above at the language. The district designates the individuals identified below, but I think it's fine for us to go ahead and make that the individuals in those positions is what you're suggesting, I guess, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You can make them superintendent at MUSD.
Oh, we can create we'll just create a generic email. We can create a different email that forwards.
Yeah. It can be, complaint at
Mhm.
Emery USD that just goes to
Yeah.
the superintendent's email.
For some reason, I'm thinking you can't put a title. I mean, I think in the AR we can, but on a universal complaint, you actually have to have a designated officer. And in that case, you'd need a name, wouldn't you? Yeah. And so that's why the name is there. And so it's something we should be updating regularly as things change.
I'm fine with that, if that's the board's.
I'm
yeah.
not sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You may be right.
I think it's the ed code, not the, or the,
But I guess my question is, we definitely need to have the designated person. Does that need to be in the AR itself? Or, annually, we know the designated person is
Mm-hmm.
John Rubio.
It is part of the AR language identifying, and I do believe there is some language that requires the identification of the question is it require the identification of the person or a person in a particular position. So if the board can consider this for approval with an amendment that we can check with legal and we can go one way or the other based on what we determine,
Yeah,
maybe?
that'd be
I
fine.
think, yeah, I mean, I think we can empower you to do one of two things.
Yeah.
Because I think there's two questions, whether we have to identify a person, which I think we do, but whether or not it has to be in the AR or just on the notification/website.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So, do we have any public comment or any other comment? No. Okay. Any public comment? Any discussion or motion?
so moved.
Yeah.
As
And the motion is,
As amended,
you want to articulate your
So we approve the AR as written with the exception that we're going to clarify the language, and we empower the superintendent to clarify the language, whether we need to designate a person, a position in there, and then to update the address.
Yeah.
Second.
Member Merriam seconds. A roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affel?
Yes. Okay, and we are on to item 6.4.
Sorry. Good evening again. This item is coming to the board for approval of the Walhalla play structure that was part of the original design for the ECCL project. I do have a change to the language, though, so if this is the appropriate time, Member Affel, should
Sure.
I say that? So on this item, I had, when writing this, tried to give us some room to make sure we're including an amount for installation and the concrete slab that it has to be placed on, but I realize that that'll be coming as a potential change order from the construction company, so I want to amend this to actually read and ask for the approval of the amount of $219,000 for the to the Lapset Group, which is based on the quote that we have received from the California representative of the company for the purchase of the Walhalla 14 module play structure instead of the amount I have listed in your board packets of $340.
Okay.
Before we go too far down this path, I have a question. I guess my question is this time sensitive? And if it is, I'm happy to proceed, but I almost wonder if we want to wait until after Saturday's meeting to get some community feedback, because I know there was not a lot of public support for the Walhalla. There were some concerns and things, so I don't know if it's something we can add to the agenda and really see if it's something the community still wants, or if we want to make this call this evening.
I will tell you, I don't know. This is, well, I'm a little concerned. I am concerned about the timeline because there is a 5 to 6 month advanced timeline on this. So I'm a little nervous about starting the school year without a play structure in place for that primary area that is currently planned and designated for K-5. To be quite honest with the board, my preference would be that we not wait because of that. And I do appreciate, we have a meeting this weekend on Saturday with a tour of the facility to certainly to engage the community and parents with things that they like about the project or are still concerned about the project. But I don't know that I also don't know that part of Saturday is to get put things in front of the community and as sort of a voting kind of manner. So I'm concerned, I guess, primarily on the timeline, though.
Mr. Baker, do you have a sense on that specific question?
Yes, I
about
do.
the
So what we understand from the vendor who sells the Walhallas, there's a 6-month lead time from when you order this to when it's delivered. Now that we're in March, that means we're talking about September. We're trying to see if we can expedite that by about a month, but it's a very long lead time because it's actually fabricated in Finland, I believe, or someplace in Scandinavia, and then shipped. So it's the length of the lead time to get it here. So we're trying to expedite getting here so that it can be installed in the project as hopefully before occupancy, if not soon thereafter in the fall.
Let me ask if is there a downside to, or is it a possibility to, if the board were to approve it, to order it, and then change its mind and say, you know what, we don't want that, we don't, within the next month to revoke the order.
I don't know the terms.
Are we committed to? Yeah. At what point are we committed to committing our money?
I don't know the exact terms, actually. Typically, for things like this with a long lead time, you can cancel the order. They might have an order fee or something like that, or something. I've not seen the exact terms of this. It's just an invoice they receive from them. We can speak with them about that. Where you get in real trouble is when they start fabricating. There's restocking fees and things of that nature. But the reason we wanted to bring it to the board tonight was because of that long lead time. We hadn't considered what Mr. Pat said about the meeting on Saturday. I'm not sure how the board would like to proceed about that issue. But all I can say is that we've been told by the manufacturer it's a 6-week lead time to when it's delivered.
6 month.
6 month, I'm sorry, lead time. Once it's delivered, it'll be installed by an installer. There are two other pieces. There are 3 portions of this. The Walhalla itself, which is the actual item before the board is approving that vendor agreement. There's also an installation fee from a local contractor, and then Turner Construction via change order, we would thicken the slab in the community commons where this would sit on top of. It has to go to be 10 inches thick instead of 4 inches thick.
Okay, why don't we save further discussion on that particular point till the discussion section and see the presentation.
Sure, I'll just go through this briefly. The Walhalla is an innovative play structure. The upper right-hand corner of this kind of shows what it is. And it's about 50 or so feet long. It's about 15 feet tall and about 4 feet deep. So it's a kind of a linear play structure. These are some photographs that show the photograph on the lower right shows some kids playing in that, and you can kind of see what the detail is. On the upper left, we're looking through it. On the lower left, we're looking through it. So that's kind of shows what the actual item is. The upper right-hand corner is a drawing of the exact model that we would be purchasing. This information is actually from the Landsep, which is the company that makes the Walhalla, their website. It's a play structure allows for vertical and horizontal climbing. It's meant to inspire children of all ages to explore. It's a steel network with colorful, I believe they're plastic or some similar material, fiberglass strips twist and turn. And it's meant to be a play structure as well as something that enlivens the architecture of the community commons. Again, the Walhalla had been in the project during the design process. In the summer of 2014, when we had to tackle align the project scope with the budget, the city and the board members on the Value Engineering Committee decided to take this out of the project. It was not a Turner installed item, it was something that would be purchased separately. And so at that time it was value engineered basically out of the project. Were we to put it back in, the funding source for this would be the additional bond proceeds approved by the board in 2015. Also want to point out that Recreation Republic is the only authorized dealer with an exclusive contract for distributing this product in California from Lapset, the manufacturer, so there's no other way to procure this. We have, it can't be purchased from any other dealer in the United States for use in California. We have discussed this issue with District Council, in terms of being able to do a contract with Recreation Republic to order this and have it delivered. The cost to purchase the Walhalla through the cost of the vendor agreement that we're asking the board for consideration is for $219,000, and that is to Recreation Republic to basically be the vendor who then we will purchase this from, and they will then deliver it to the site. The additional costs of installation and the thickened slab are approximately $120,000 to $140,000. So the total cost of this is about $350,000. But the vendor agreement that is before the board this evening is for $219,000 to Recreation Republic.
Is that your presentation?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Questions, thoughts, or questions?
Not to get into too much of the detail, but with the area around the Walhalla, is there a fall zone protection?
Yes, good question. So this sits on top of there's a 10-inch thickened slab, and then there's a 2-inch layer of cork, of a synthetic cork that can weather well, that it sits on top of. That cork layer extends 4 feet on either side of the Walhalla and below it.
Just based on your description of it, 15 feet, has it been analyzed for the fall zone? Because you're up 15 feet, I believe 4 feet isn't going to cover the fall zone.
Yeah, that's what's specified. I believe you could probably do a larger fall zone.
Yeah, I believe I talked to the architects, Mr. Baker. I think the fall zone's a little bit wider from what I recollect. That's my recollection, but I don't recall offhand.
You're not actually supposed to climb on the outside. So
Correct.
So yeah, I mean,
I see it happening.
well, I heard 4 feet on each side, and so is that on all 3 sides or on all 4 sides?
On all 4 sides. And
So it's not attached to the building.
The details that I looked at showed 4 feet. I'm sure you can make that with whatever width you'd like to.
But it's 4 feet off the building.
No, it's not. It's not 4 feet off the building. Mr. There's a bigger amount of space off the building. The architect did not want this to be too close to the building because we didn't want a situation where somebody could one evening climb up on top of from there, jump onto the rooftop of the main administrative building. So there's a larger gap between the building itself and Walhalla.
Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but I've always imagined this not abutting against the administration building, but right up against the elementary middle school building.
Good
and Don,
point.
you're looking.
It's
The
moved,
original-
it's moved around.
Yeah, the original design had it not exactly next to it, as Dr. Rubio spoke. There's a distance between it and the building, but it was on the side of the community commons next to the community canvas, the long steel frame that goes next to the K-8 school. So you are correct. It usually was on that side of the building. When it was then deleted from the project. Then the project went through city review for stormwater control compliance, for C3 compliance, and in order to add planting areas that act as filters for stormwater, we added some of those along the K-8 school. That has now been approved after an arduous process with the city, so we now have those along they provide seat walls and planted areas for people to sit on, but the area where the Walhalla had been in the earlier design a couple of years ago now is inhabited by these planters, which would be very difficult to move and change around because the drainage is already in that kind of is part of that system. So for that reason, we looked at areas where the Walhalla could go, and the best area in the community commons is alongside the administration building because that area of hardscape and softscape is just landscape and hardscape. There's no utility work or stormwater work in those areas.
And I'll add, we also, from my perspective, I didn't want it right next to the classrooms. Well, it just didn't make sense. And the city looked at some different options, and I think they had actually come to the conclusion that this was also the best location, the city staff.
Is there an analysis of the insides? It looks like the most you could fall if you're inside is only a few feet. If
Not
that.
even that. I think
Right.
it's like 3 feet maybe. I'm
Yeah.
assuming, but
And that is, the orange material there is what, hard plastic or something?
I believe it's like a fiberglass type. It's not just plastic. It's a fiberglass and exterior material.
Mhm.
That's as I understand it.
Okay, so that, I mean, it looks fairly safe on the inside. It is a question, it seems. Can you climb up on the outside? That's not netting.
Yeah, if you look
But it
carefully,
looks
it's
like-
got
is
a
it-
very,
is
it's
it
got
metal?
narrowly spaced vertical bars and
That are metal.
that are metal
Mhm.
and horizontal bars. It looks the details we've seen. It looks like it's very difficult to climb up the outside. That's actually why you'll see it's got those vertical bars so close together. You know, it's not meant to be. The intent is not to climb up the outside. I don't know how it's performed other installations in that regard, but it's really meant to be climbed within. And you'll see there are openings that are fairly low, like in the lower right-hand picture, right-hand corner, where you can enter into it from the side. But it appears to be very difficult to climb up on the outside.
Does this have any disabled access as far as use by disabled students or children?
It doesn't appear to. It's a very good question. That's the first time that issue's ever been raised.
The side, the narrow sides, I believe the students are entirely open. Am I correct about that? So the smaller sides on the ends are open entirely, so you can actually walk into the end of it. Is that right?
Yeah, if this is a segregated play structure, there's some ramifications in not providing disabled access. So I'm hesitant to really say it's a win-win or a winner here. And another thing, as far as the durability aspect of it, the longevity, I'm kind of questioning that, because it sounds like this is a unique European design. Track record, those are the things that seeing just through just one or two photos, it just doesn't tell the story.
It doesn't. My concern, Member Marion, is that we really do need a play structure in that area, and unless we're going to eat up a lot of the space that the city also we're sharing with them, this seems like the best option to me. I think the kids would be excited by it. I think they would like it. I don't think in that K-5 area that we have other options, to be honest with you.
Mr. Mayor, we did review the structure with the Division of State Architects, who said that it's not in their jurisdiction. It's a play structure. The footing, the thickened slab is, but that is all. And they are the authority having jurisdiction in regard to ADA compliance, but they have said this is sort of a district or an owner thing, and they don't review these. So there's been no review, if you will, vis-a-vis accessibility.
Okay, can you elaborate on that for me? Why isn't it within the jurisdiction of the Division of State Architects?
Play structures, they don't review play structures.
Any play structure.
They
It's not
view
something
those as
unique about
being
this one.
equipment that the district installs.
Mhm. So, yeah, what, Member Marion, based on your experience, what
Well, it's not entirely true that they wouldn't review it, because there's a structural component to it. The foundation is one thing that would have to be reviewed. It lies under a certain height, so that might fall within that jurisdiction. Under the administrative code, some portion of items that are located on a school site can be considered, it's called not a school building, and there's various categories for that, or various items that fall within that category, and this may be one of them. So there isn't a review by the state architect for, as Mr. Baker had mentioned, as far as accessibility, but there may be a structural component that may or may not be required.
Well, my question was, well, also, what if you have some feature on your school campus which is accessible to some, but not accessible to disabled students, or some portion of your disabled students?
Because
Can we call them students with disabilities?
What's that?
Can we call them students with disabilities?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
What are the ramifications?
Since they wouldn't review it in that capacity, it is, I'm going to say, luck of the draw, or there's a possible suit. I'm saying the worst case scenario, but if somebody feels that they're being discriminated in that sense, possibly could raise an issue regarding the access to that play structure. Because if you look at the play structure, I think in the pre-K area, that is, I believe, accessible.
There,
There's elements of that.
I don't recall. I have to look at that actually. But the same thing. DSA did not review that play structure either. And that may have elements of accessibility. I don't recall actually. We could look at that, but I don't recall.
And what's the standard of accessibility that one needs to meet? I mean, clearly it would be difficult to get a wheelchair in there and manipulate around there. There are other disabilities that
There
probably would not be hindered.
There's, I mean, I'm not familiar with this system, but there's others out there that do provide some means of, to the extent of, let's say, for example, not, this happens all the time, but let's say a wheelchair access, where you do have a portion of a swing that's accessible for wheelchairs. I'm just giving you an example of a play structure that does have that attribute. In this case, you don't have, I want to say, moving parts or any type of operation, so it may fall within that guise, and that's a question that we could probably raise for opposed to the supplier at least, or the customer's rep or the product rep about this as far as the concerns that we're raising.
Are all the entrances above the ground? I only see the one with the kid climbing in.
Yeah, all of the entrances are above ground level.
Well, I'm not sure, Mr. Baker. The part I don't know is, again, the narrow ends. I believe they're entirely open.
Correct. The renderings we've seen show the narrow ends are open, and that's how you enter it there. And also there are a couple of openings, such as the lower right-hand picture shows, on this low on the side.
If those narrow ends are open, as I believe they are, I don't think that there's an access.
So both ends, the right on the far right and the far left, are at ground level, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Can we?
I mean, I'm thinking about the play structure at Anna Yates now, and there's so many varied approaches and varied things that while in totality it's not wholly accessible, there's enough of it that is interactive and accessible to students of all ability levels. There's no swing for a student who utilizes a wheelchair, but there's definitely, pedals they can reach with their arms. There's, I'm thinking about, I'm on it almost every weekend, so I know it well from playing tag, but there's just different access points that have just, some more challenging than others, and really does lend itself to accessibility. And then there's tetherball courts nearby. There's other activities, whereas this is going to be the only activity on that community commons.
That's not correct.
More or less, right? What else?
No, we'll have as many or more tetherball poles as well as 4 square areas. So we have been working with the architects on that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
There also are there's one of our pieces of equipment. There are some large movable blocks that can be stacked, that are stored actually at the end of Building B, that come out at recess time, that are meant to be. They're not out there all the time, so that if you have an event in the community commons, but they're quite substantial and can be. So there are other play structures within this, other play equipment, I should say, in that space.
Yeah. Member Esch.
Does the company that makes this, do they have a capacity suggestion? Like, do they have a number of kids that they feel is safe to play on it at any given time? Like say we approve it and it gets put in the first day of school, like kids are gonna bum rush the thing, right? So I'm just wondering if the company has a suggestion, shouldn't have more than X amount of kids at a time.
Yeah, I've not seen anything in the literature that has a limitation. There may be a recommendation or suggestion. We could look into that, but I've not seen anything in the literature that says it's limited to X numbers of people.
Yeah, I would just be curious, because then that would, if approved, would drive some first week of school
Management.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Is there, I guess, an issue if say worst case scenario, a young student's having a bad day, climbs all the way up to the top, and it's just not coming out? They're on that top level.
We've gotten that question, actually.
I mean, okay,
Yeah,
like, how, does maybe, not spry
The,
adult like some of us
the
in
board
our
president
elderly
gets
years.
called
That's right,
to come and get
Oh,
such
that's the
stuff.
job. That's
Yeah,
the job of the
that's-
board president. Okay.
It's written right there.
All right. Oh, okay.
What we
can
do
have that
understand is
policy.
that it's that all areas of it are accessible by adults. It is done. It says children of all ages, meaning that anybody can. But if you look at it, and also what it says is adults can access all of it. So if a child did get stuck, an adult could come up in there and retrieve them from how we understand it's designed.
That does actually bring up another good point of a medical issue at top of structure. If a kid were to pass out or anything, access of people responding to issues. Sorry, Brandon.
Do you, I guess one question I would have is what, and you may not know this, where else in California and in the U.S. has this been utilized, and what's other experience over here been?
It has not been installed in California. I believe that a couple of them have been installed on the East Coast.
Okay, can we find out from Recreation Republic, any kind of customer reviews or experience, or can we get?
Yeah, this
Touch with those
actually
folks?
was actually specified by the landscape architect, Marta Fry Associates. They specified it. That's where it came from. We can certainly discuss with them those sorts of questions.
Okay.
I will let the board know, I have fairly thoroughly searched the internet on this product and the designs and where I've seen it around the world. And I saw a number of comments. I didn't see anything in my research that lead me to believe that there was an issue or problem. It's been an established product in other countries for a while. In fact, I think in Germany they decided to triple it in length and put it into a large family community park. But I didn't glean anything in terms of concerns. Just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just like to see some technical information as far as the material used, as far as like the gauge of the metal for the screen, the pole sizes, the pole thickness, the wall thickness of that, just for a durability aspect, because I'm looking at this and for me it doesn't look substantial. This is a play structure that's supposed to last a number of years, and it just does not look substantial. That's my concern.
Let me see if there's any public comment on this item.
Here. Whoa.
Okay. Well, moving to discussion, I think it's a really fascinating structure and offers a lot of potential and great playing opportunities. I would love to kick around in there with my son. But it also seems like we have some questions about that I guess we'd like to get answered before moving forward. And some of those are around what's the disabled access, and I get it's really a legal question, it seems to me, maybe from our counsel or some disability lawyer. What's our risk, if any, of if there's not disabled access? Is that necessarily required, or we've got enough other things on the ground that that would be okay? Because the alternative, I don't think there's a version of this for students with disabilities. It would be nothing, right? So that's and the other you had technical questions
technical question and
about
the
durability.
And the liability aspect of it for accessibility. Those are the two main concerns that I have.
And I added the any information we can get about performance in the U.S. From other, presumably schools are using this. Maybe it could be city parks or.
Okay.
And those would be my. So I would be leaning towards saying let's bring this back to the next board meeting, and if
Okay.
it gets installed 2 weeks later,
Okay.
it's not a huge fallback
All right.
problem.
Can I ask a question about this? No, never mind. I want to ask about the synthetic cork, but purely for personal reasons, so I'll be quiet. Synthetic, he said synthetic cork. Cork, sorry.
Cork, the bottom.
The bottom, yeah, C-O-R-K, synthetic, and I've just not heard of synthetic cork.
It's some sort of, that's how it's been described to me. I don't know the exact, it's like a foam, I think the photographs that I've seen, the detail, it looks like that dense foam material that you see on some playgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Actually not dissimilar to what we have actually installed in the cardio fitness room. It looks like a 2-inch dense foam that you see installed in playgrounds as that with a mottled kind of rubberized sort of look to it.
Okay, I am, can you? Yeah,
No other questions for me.
yeah. So, I mean, I threw out one way to go. It seems like other board members agree. Bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll go ahead and get this information.
All right.
I've taken all of your notes, and we will do a little more research and bring this back in 2 weeks to the board.
All right, we appreciate that. Mr. Baker, and you're hanging in to the last agenda item for us. And at this point, we are on to board reports and announcements. Do we have any reports or announcements?
No.
I had the pleasure of spending my Saturday evening with my son at the Emery basketball game in the new gym and watched our boys win. And not just win, but dominate through the entire game. At a certain point, I almost felt like they were toying with the other team because they'd go up by double digits and then let the other team catch up and feel like they had a chance, and then go up by double digits. It was a really good time, and I'm excited to see them play again. I think they play on Saturday.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Okay.
They're
Tonight. If they
playing,
win tonight,
they
they
started
play.
an hour ago in our gym.
Yeah, so it's free to board members, I believe, although I paid to get in and happily did so because it was, Dr. Rubio was there, Mr. Lavas was there. It was a good night. I don't know if you guys had fun.
Yeah,
but it was a fun game. We've got one guy who's got just a great outside shot, and it was really the crowd was great for both sides.
Yeah.
It was so I highly recommend heading out to the game, and particularly if we win, it makes it all the better. But it was a lot of fun, and I think I've said that like 3 times now, so I'll be quiet.
All right. Well, thank you for that, and I'll be heading over if we finish quickly our closed session.
I agree.
Are we calendar review? Sorry.
Unless other board
That's fine.
reports
I
or
just-
announcements.
yeah, I just want to wish the team good luck in the interim, both boys and girls. So we'll see where that goes. But just fingers crossed, and more power to them.
Well, I took the liberty, because I know you'd all agree, of congratulating the team and urging them on this morning on behalf of the board.
Yeah, thank you.
I might just add a thank you to member Merriam, who supplied the school district with 2 new basketball nets in anticipation of 1 or 2 nets being cut down
Oh,
at
really?
the last game. And so that did occur, and we did end up needing those. So thank you, member Merriam. The school district
Forethought.
thanks you for your donation.
Forethought. Okay. Anything on that branch? Okay. On to calendar review.
Yes, this Saturday, rain or shine, we have our community study session workshop at our new facility. There should be ample parking on the 47th Street side off of San Pablo. We'll be in our gym or in the room right next door to that. We'll have some signs up, and hope people can come out this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our next, our Measure J Citizens Oversight Committee is on March 16th at 5 p.m., also actually occurring at the ECCL facility. And our next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is March 23rd, 2016.
All right. That concludes a portion of our open meeting. We will now adjourn to closed session.